Hello everyone, welcome to this channel. In today's video, we are going to learn about one of the most important and commonly used algorithms in machine learning, linear regression. We will understand linear regression from the basics using a simple real-world example, and I will explain important concepts step by step. So let's get started. First, let's understand what is linear regression actually means. Linear regression is a supervised machine learning algorithm used to predict a continuous numerical value by finding a relationship between an input and an output. Now, this definition may sound a little technical, so let's break it down into simple words. First, what is supervised learning? In supervised learning, we train a machine learning model using data where we already know the input as well as the correct output. For example, suppose we have the information about students. We know how many hours a student studied, and also we know the marks of that student obtained. So the model gets the both input and the correct output during training. The model looks at these examples and learns the relationship between them. Later, when we give the model to a new input, it can use that it has learned to make a prediction. So in simple words, supervised learning means learning from examples where the correct answer is already known. Okay, I will repeat one more time. Supervised learning means learning from examples where the correct answer is already known. Okay, now let's understand the word regression. Regression is a type of machine learning problem where we try to predict a numerical value. For example, we can predict the salary of an employee based on their experience. We can predict the price of a house based on its area. We can predict the temperature of a place, or we can predict the marks of a student based on their study hours. In all these examples, the output is a number. So this is a regression problem. Now let's quickly compare the regression with the classification. In regression, we predict a numerical value. For example, salary 50,000 rupees, house price 60 lakh rupees, marks 75. But in classification, we predict a category or class. For example, email, spam or not spam, student, pass or fail, image, cat or dog. So remember, this is the simple difference between the regression and classification. Regression predicts a numerical value, while classification predicts the category or class. Okay, now let's understand the word linear. Why is it called as a linear regression? The word linear means that we are trying to represent the relationship between input and output using a straight line. When we put our data points on a graph, we try to find a straight line that represents the general relationship between those points. This line is called the regression line or the best fit line. Now let's understand two important terms, independent variable and dependent variable. The independent variable is our input. We actually represent it using x. The dependent variable is the output that we want to predict. We actually represent it using the y. So we can simply remember x is our input and y is our output. Now let's take a simple real world example. Suppose we want to predict a student marks based on the number of hours the student studies. Let's say we have the following data. A student studies for 1 hour and gets the 35 marks, and a student studies for 2 hours and gets the 42 marks. A student studies 3 hours and gets the 50 marks, and a student studies for 4 hours and he gets the 58 marks, and a student studies 5 hours and he gets the 65 marks, and a student studies for 6 hours and he gets the 72 marks. So we have two variables here, student hours, study hours and marks. Study hours is our input, and so this is x, and the marks is our output, so this is our y. Now let's visualize this data. We will put study hours on the x-axis and marks as the y-axis. When we plot these values on the graph, we can use something interesting. As the study hours increase, the marks also generally increase. So there is a relationship between study hours and marks. Now our goal is to understand this relationship and use it to make a prediction. For example, suppose a new student studies for 7 hours, we don't know the marks of this student. So can we predict approximately how many marks the student might get? So if you already know how we can find the answer, let me know in the comments. What method or formula would you use to predict the marks? And if you want to know how we actually find this prediction using the mathematical formula of linear regression, watch the next video. So in today's video, we learned the basics of linear regression. We understood the linear regression is, why it comes under the supervised learning, what regression means, and how it different from classification. We also understood the linear means and how straight line represents the relationship between input and output. Finally, we understood the independent variables and dependent variables represented by x and y, and took the example of the study hours and marks. So to learn how we actually calculate the prediction, watch the next video. Thank you for watching. Please like, share and subscribe to this channel.